Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. The Yuan Dynasty 1, 2, 7, 1, 1, 3, 6, 8 CE was established by the Mongols, marking a significant shift in Chinese history as it became part of the vast Mongol Empire under Kublai Khan. The Yuan Dynasty represented the first time in Chinese history that the country was ruled by a foreign power. And it was characterized by a period of cultural exchange, economic challenges, and eventual decline due to internal resistance and external difficulties. Establishment of Mongol rule by Kublai Khan, Kublai Khan's ascendancy. The Yuan Dynasty was founded by Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis Khan. Kublai Khan's establishment of the Yuan Dynasty in 1271 marked the completion of the Mongol conquest of China, which had begun under his grandfather and continued under his father, Tolui, and other Mongol generals. Kublai Khan's rule was initially based in the northern part of China, but he ultimately conquered the Song Dynasty in 1279, bringing all of China under Mongol control. He moved the capital to Daduk, modern-day Beijing, and made efforts to consolidate Mongol rule over the entirety of China. The Mongol rulers of the Yuan Dynasty were seen as foreign invaders by many Chinese, but Kublai Khan worked to incorporate Chinese systems of governance, culture, and administration into the Mongol imperial structure, creating a blend of Mongol traditions and Chinese policies. Mongol rule and administration. Kublai Khan adopted several elements of Chinese governance, including appointing Chinese officials and promoting Confucian principles in government. However, he also maintained Mongol traditions, such as placing Mongols and other non-Chinese people in key administrative roles, especially in the military and higher government offices. The Mongol rulers emphasized the centralization of power and sought to strengthen control over China's vast territory. But the political structure remained heavily influenced by Mongol military leadership and authority. Integration of China into the vast Mongol Empire, expansion of the Mongol Empire under the Yuan Dynasty, China became part of the broader Mongol Empire, which spanned from Eastern Europe to China, reaching across Central Asia and into parts of the Middle East. This integration facilitated the exchange of goods, culture, and knowledge between China and the other parts of the Mongol Empire. The Yuan Dynasty played a key role in the Pax Mongolica, the period of peace under Mongol rule that allowed for increased trade, cultural exchange, and the flow of information across Eurasia. This period saw the revival and expansion of the Silk Road, which connected China, Central Asia, Europe, and the Middle East. Cultural and economic exchange. The Mongols were instrumental in promoting trade across the Silk Road, which not only increased the flow of goods like silk, tea, and porcelain, but also facilitated cultural exchanges between the East and West. Marco Polo, a Venetian merchant, traveled to Yuan China and spent several years at Kublai Khan's court, where he described the grandeur of Yuan China and its advancements in administration, infrastructure, and commerce. Polo's accounts, though sometimes exaggerated, introduced Europe to many aspects of Chinese culture and life, infrastructure and development. The Yuan Dynasty also saw significant infrastructure development, including the building of roads, canals, and public works to facilitate trade and communication across the vast Mongol Empire. The Grand Canal, which linked the Yellow River and Yangtze River, was expanded and improved under the Yuan to support the flow of goods and resources between the north and south of China. Marco Polo's travels and description of Yuan China. Marco Polo's journey. Marco Polo, an Italian merchant, traveled to Yuan China with his family in the late 13th century, spending about 17 years in the Mongol. Bulmer's II, Irish travels true, the north and south of Germany, the Lake River, stretching in all directions, empire. He is perhaps most famous for his accounts of Kublai Khan's court and the grandeur of Yuan China, which he described in his book, The Travels of Marco Polo. Polo's descriptions of Yuan China provided Europeans with one of their first detailed accounts of Chinese culture, economy, and governance. He wrote about the luxurious court advancements in technology, such as paper money and coal-burning stoves, the vastness of Chinese cities, and the efficient organization of the Mongol Empire. However, some historians question the accuracy of Polo's accounts, as they sometimes seem to exaggerate or misunderstand aspects of Chinese life. Cultural impressions. Polo's writings helped to spark curiosity and interest in China and the East among Europeans, contributing to the age of exploration and oof. Huh, 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 ho, huh, ho. Later trade relations between China and Europe. His accounts made China seem like a land of great wealth, technological marvels, and advanced society. Decline due to economic struggles and native Han resistance. Economic struggles. Despite the initial prosperity and economic expansion, the Yuan dynasty faced significant economic difficulties toward the end of its reign. The exploitation of resources and heavy taxation to support the Mongol military and lavish court led to widespread discontent among the population. The Mongols also struggled with maintaining their empire's vast territory, especially due to the high costs associated with their military campaigns and the inefficiencies of the Mongol administrative system. Corruption and mismanagement became rampant in the later years of the dynasty. Social unrest and rebellion. The Mongols were seen as foreign rulers, and this led to significant resentment from the Han Chinese population, who were the majority. This resentment fueled rebellions throughout the empire, particularly in the rural areas where the Chinese peasants were suffering under the burden of taxation and military conscription. The most significant of these uprisings was the Red Turban Rebellion, 1351, 1368, a peasant-led revolt that sought to overthrow Mongol rule. The rebellion was driven by economic hardship, corruption, and the desire for the restoration of Han Chinese rule. What about fall of the Yuan dynasty? By 1368, the Red Turban Rebellion and other insurgencies had weakened the Yuan dynasty to the point of collapse. The leader of the rebellion, Zhu Yuanzhang ultimately overthrew the last Yuan emperor and established the Ming Dynasty in 1368, marking the end of Mongol rule in China. The Mongols retreated to the northern steppes, and although they retained control over parts of Central Asia, the Yuan dynasty's rule over China came to a close. Historical significance of the Yuan dynasty. So basically, the central thing for the Yuan dynasty is that it started to actually become Japan in 1891. Unification of China, the Yuan dynasty was the first foreign dynasty to unify all of China under a single ruler. Under Kublai Khan's leadership, the Mongols integrated China into a vast empire that connected East and West, facilitating cross-cultural exchanges that had lasting impacts on both regions. Cultural exchange and technological advancements, the Pax Mongolica, and the flourishing of trade across the Silk Road allowed for the exchange of ideas, technologies, and goods. The introduction of paper, money, gunpowder, and the compass to the West were among the most significant contributions to global history. Marco Polo's travels helped bridge the gap between East and West, introducing Europeans to the wealth and advanced culture of Yuan China. Legacy. Despite its short-lived rule, the Yuan dynasty left a lasting legacy in terms of its cultural exchanges, technological innovations, and its role in integrating China into the broader Mongol Empire. The Yuan period was followed by the Ming Dynasty, which sought to restore Han Chinese governance and culture, but would still bear the influence of the Mongol period, particularly in trade and diplomacy. And now, too, the Yuan dynasty was a complex and transformative period in Chinese history, marked by foreign domination, economic challenges, and cultural vibrancy. Though it was relatively short-lived, its impacts on Chinese society and its contributions to global trade and cultural exchange were profound. The Ming Dynasty 1368, 164, 4 CE, was one of the most significant periods in Chinese history, marked by the restoration of Chinese rule after the fall of the Yuan dynasty. It was characterized by the strengthening of Confucian traditions, remarkable economic growth, and significant achievements in culture, architecture, and exploration. However, despite its initial successes, the dynasty faced internal and external challenges, which ultimately led to its decline and fall. Restoration of Chinese rule and Confucian traditions. End of Mongol rule, the Ming Dynasty was established after the Red Turban Rebellion. 1351, 1368, and the eventual overthrow of the Yuan dynasty. Zhu Yuanzhang, the leader of the rebellion, became the first emperor of the Ming dynasty, taking the name Emperor Hongwu. Hongwu sought to restore Han Chinese rule and remove the Mongol influence from Chinese society. This included rebuilding traditional Chinese institutions that had been weakened under Mongol rule, particularly the Confucian examination system for selecting officials. Under the Ming, there was a strong emphasis on Confucianism as the official state ideology. Confucian values such as family loyalty, filial piety, social harmony, and moral governance were promoted to strengthen the state's foundation. Hmm. Centralization of power. The early Ming rulers sought to centralize power and reassert the imperial authority of the emperor. Emperor Hongwu abolished many of the bureaucratic reforms that had been introduced by the Mongols, reestablishing a strong imperial court. Hongwu's reign also saw the establishment of civil service examinations and the promotion of Confucian scholars into government positions. This system continued to be an essential feature of Chinese governance throughout the dynasty. Restoration of traditional Chinese culture. The Ming Dynasty saw a revival of traditional Chinese culture, including literature, painting, and ceramics. The Ming porcelain became particularly famous, especially for its delicate blue and white designs and its export to Europe and other parts of Asia. Maritime explorations led by Zheng He. Zheng He's voyages. One of the most remarkable aspects of the early Ming Dynasty was the maritime expeditions led by the eunuch Admiral Zheng He during the reign of Emperor Yongle, 422-4424. Zheng He, who was originally a Muslim from the region of Yunnan, commanded a series of 7 naval expeditions between 1405 and 1433, which sailed to regions such as Southeast Asia, the Indian Ocean, East Africa, and even the Arabian Peninsula. The fleet led by Zheng He was monumental, with ships described as the largest and most advanced of their time. And the purpose of these expeditions was to assert Chinese influence, establish diplomatic ties, and promote trade with distant lands. Zheng He's voyages were not only a demonstration of Ming naval power, but also a way to foster relations and establish Chinese dominance in the region. Cultural and economic impact. The voyages of Zheng He helped expand Chinese trade networks and cultural exchange. The Ming Dynasty became an influential center of commerce, with Chinese goods such as porcelain, silk, and tea being exported around the world. However, after the death of Emperor Yongle and the subsequent withdrawal of support for maritime exploration, the Ming court largely abandoned the sea expeditions and turned its focus inward. As a result, the expansive Chinese influence in maritime affairs gradually declined. Construction of the Forbidden City in Beijing, expeditions, symbol of imperial power. The Forbidden City, located in the heart of Beijing, was constructed between 1406 and 1420 under the direction of Emperor Yongle. It served as the imperial palace and the political center of the Ming Dynasty. The Forbidden City is one of the most iconic symbols of Chinese imperial power and was designed to reflect the grandeur and authority of the emperor. It consists of palaces, temples, and gardens, all enclosed by massive walls, and a moat, creating a sense of isolation and exclusivity for the imperial family and court officials. Architectural achievement. The Forbidden City was a masterpiece of Chinese architecture and urban planning, with wooden structures, golden roofs, and precise geometric design. It symbolized the emperor's centralized authority and the belief in the divine right of rulers. The city was built to impress and to symbolize the emperor's position as the son of heaven, a ruler with divine authority over the world. The Palace complex is also a UNESCO World Heritage Site and remains one of the largest and most visited palace complexes in the world. Um, Fall due to corruption, peasant revolts, and Manchu invasions, internal corruption, and economic decline. In the later years of the Ming Dynasty, internal corruption became a significant issue. The centralized bureaucracy, which had been instrumental in the dynasty's rise, began to suffer from mismanagement, bribery, and a decline in the effectiveness of government institutions. Economic difficulties, such as heavy taxation, inflation, and fiscal mismanagement, led to widespread poverty and unrest, especially in the rural areas. Um, the government struggled to respond to the needs of its people, and this caused social unrest to escalate. Peasant rebellions, the economic hardships faced by the peasantry led to frequent uprisings and rebellions. The most significant was the Li-Zhe-Cheng rebellion, led by the former Li-Zhe-Chen rebellion, peasant Li-Zhe-Cheng, who rose to prominence in the early 17th century. In 1644, Li Zhicheng's forces captured Beijing, and the last Ming Emperor Changzhen committed suicide, marking the official collapse of the Ming Dynasty. At the same time, the Manchu people from the northeast, modern-day Manchuria, were preparing to invade China. The Manchu invasion, led by Changle descendants, had already begun in the early 1600s. And they took advantage of the internal turmoil in China to advance south. Manchu invasion and establishment of the Qing Dynasty. After the fall of the Ming capital in Beijing, the Manchu forces seized the opportunity to take control of northern China. In 1644, the Manchu entered Beijing and proclaimed the establishment of the Qing Dynasty, which would rule China for the next 268 years. The Qing Dynasty 16441912 continued many of the policies of the Ming, but also introduced new ones, such as a stricter social structure and policies designed to maintain Manchu control over the Han Chinese majority. Historical significance of the Ming Dynasty, cultural and technological achievements. The Ming Dynasty left an enduring legacy in terms of cultural achievements, particularly in art, literature, architecture, and ceramics. The Ming porcelain and Ming paintings remain highly valued today. The Confucian state system that the Ming reinforced continued to shape Chinese governance for centuries. Impact on trade and exploration. The maritime explorations under Zheng He were a high point in China's naval history, though they were short-lived. These expeditions helped foster trade between China and distant regions and contributed to China's influence across Asia. The Ming's involvement in the Silk Road trade and their early engagement with global commerce had lasting effects on the world economy. Political legacy. The Ming Dynasty's collapse was a significant turning point in Chinese history. It demonstrated the vulnerability of centralized imperial rule when faced with economic mismanagement, corruption, and social unrest. The Ming's fall set the stage for the Qing Dynasty and the continuation of Chinese imperial rule under a new dynasty, which, although different in some ways, would continue many of the Ming's policies. The Ming Dynasty remains one of the most important periods in Chinese history due to its achievements in governance, culture, and trade, even though it ultimately succumbed to internal strife and external invasions. The Qing Dynasty 1644-1912 CE was the last imperial dynasty of China, and its reign was marked by significant territorial expansion, cultural flourishing, but also by internal rebellions, foreign invasions, and increasing Western influence. And the Qing Dynasty was founded by the Manchu people who came from the northeast region of China, and it saw the consolidation of Manchu rule over China and the growth of a large and diverse empire. However, by the late 19th and early 20th centuries, the Qing faced multiple challenges that ultimately led to its collapse and the end of imperial rule in China. Establishment of Manchu rule and territorial expansion. Uh, I think Manchu conquest and rise to power. I was born in the Qing Dynasty was established after the Manchu people led by Nurhaci and his son Hong Taiji gradually conquered China from the north. The final phase of the conquest began in the 1640s and culminated with the capture of Beijing in 1644. The Ming Dynasty had been weakened by internal corruption, rebellions, and invasions from the Manchu and peasant uprisings, which created an opening for the Manchus. After the fall of the Ming, the Manchus moved to consolidate their rule over China. The last Ming Emperor Chongzhen, committed suicide during the invasion, leaving the Qing to take control of the capital. The Qing rulers gradually expanded their control over all of China, incorporating Mongolia, Tibet, Xinjiang, and parts of Central Asia into the empire, creating the largest territorial extent in Chinese history. Consolidation of power. The early Qing emperors, especially Emperor Kangxi, 1651-1722, and Emperor Qianlong, 1651-796, were able to consolidate Manchu rule by employing a combination of military conquests, strategic alliances with local elites, and the promotion of Confucian governance. A Qing court carefully maintained the loyalty of the Han Chinese majority by adopting many elements of traditional Chinese governance while still ensuring Manchu cultural supremacy. Population growth and the flourishing of arts. Population growth. Under the Qing, China saw significant population growth, with the population growing from around 150 million in 1644 to approximately 400 million by the early 19th century. This growth was due to a combination of agricultural improvements, increased stability, and a relatively peaceful period during the height of the Qing Dynasty. The agricultural economy flourished due to the introduction of new crops from the Americas, such as maize, sweet potatoes, and peanuts, and the expansion of irrigation systems, which contributed to increased food production. The population growth, however, also led to social pressures, particularly in the form of land shortages and rural poverty, which contributed to social unrest in the later years of the Qing. However, flourishing of arts and culture, the Qing Dynasty was known for its achievements in art, literature, and architecture. During the Kangxi and Qianlong emperors, China saw a revival of classical Chinese arts, particularly in painting, ceramics, poetry, and calligraphy. The Qianlong Emperor was particularly known for his patronage of the arts and culture, as well as his interest in preserving traditional Chinese Confucian values. The Qing also developed their distinctive style of porcelain, which became highly prized both domestically and internationally. Imperial collections such as libraries and artworks were compiled, and Confucianism was reinforced as the state ideology. The Qing court also oversaw the compilation of important historical texts and encyclopedias, which preserved Chinese culture and history. Western incursions, Opium Wars, treaty ports, and unequal treaties. Opium Wars, the 19th century saw increasing Western involvement in China, particularly Britain, due to the demand for Chinese goods such as tea, silk, and porcelain. However, China's economy remained relatively self-sufficient, and the Qing government was reluctant to open up its markets to Western goods. The British East India Company began importing opium into China, leading to widespread addiction among the Chinese population. The Qing government, under Emperor Dao Guang, attempted to suppress the opium trade, which led to the First Opium War, 1839-1842. After their defeat, China was forced to sign the Treaty of Nanking, 1842, which opened up 5 treaty ports to foreign trade, ceded Hong Kong to Britain, and granted extraterritorial rights to foreign nationals. And unequal treaties. The Second Opium War, 1856-1860, further weakened the Qing Dynasty and resulted in more unequal treaties, including the Treaty of Tientsin, 1858, and the Convention of Peking, 1860, which gave additional territories to foreign powers and further undermined Chinese sovereignty. Western powers, including Britain, France, and later Germany, Russia, and the United States, continued to exploit China's economic weaknesses through foreign-controlled concessions and special privileges in various parts of China. Taiping Rebellion and Boxer Uprising. Taiping Rebellion. One of the most significant challenges to Qing rule came from within with the outbreak of the Taiping Rebellion. 1850-1864, led by Hong Xiuquan, a man who claimed to be the brother of Jesus Christ. The Taiping forces sought to establish a theocratic kingdom that opposed both the Qing Dynasty and Confucianism. The Taiping Rebellion was one of the deadliest conflicts in world history, with an estimated 2,030 million people dying from violence, famine, and disease. The rebellion severely weakened the Qing Dynasty, and although it was eventually suppressed by a combination of Chinese loyalist forces and Western support, it left deep scars in China. Boxer Uprising. In 1899, a secret society called the Boxers, officially known as the Yiquan, rose up against foreign influence and Qing imperial authority, particularly, targeting foreign missionaries, Chinese Christians, and foreign nationals. The Boxer Rebellion escalated into an anti-foreign, anti-Christian movement. The rebellion was eventually crushed by an 8-nation alliance composed of Japan, Russia, Britain, France, Germany, the United States, Italy, and Austria-Hungary. Following the rebellion, China was forced to sign the Boxer Protocol, 1901, which required them to pay heavy indemnities to the foreign powers and grant further privileges to foreign nationals. Decline due to internal rebellion and external pressures. Internal strife. The Qing Dynasty faced severe internal strife due to corruption, social unrest, and a series of rebellions. The Taiping Rebellion, Nian Rebellion, and Boxer. Uprising were only the most visible manifestations of the deepening crisis. In response, the Qing attempted to modernize through the self-strengthening movement 186111895, which sought to adopt Western technologies and military practices while preserving traditional Confucian values. However, the reforms were often ineffective and faced resistance from conservative elements within the Qing court. Foreign The Republic of China, 1912-1949, was a period marked by immense political instability, social upheaval, and significant external pressures. Following the collapse of the Qing Dynasty in 1912, China attempted to establish a modern republican government, but the country faced a series of challenges that shaped its trajectory. Key events include the rise of rival political factions, foreign invasions, internal conflicts, and the eventual Chinese Civil War, leading to the eventual victory of the Communist Party and the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, overthrow of the Qing Dynasty and the establishment of the Republic. End of Imperial China. The Republic of China was established in 1912 after the overthrow of the Qing Dynasty, ending over 2,000 years of imperial rule. The revolution that led to the fall of the Qing was largely driven by the discontent with the Qing government's inability to modernize China and address internal and external pressures. The overthrow was primarily led by the Revolutionary Alliance, a group of intellectuals, reformers, and military officers, including Sun Yat-sen, who is considered the father of modern China. Sun's vision was to create a democratic republic based on principles of nationalism, democracy, and people's livelihood. Sun Yat-sen was elected as the provisional president of the new republic, but his government was weak and faced opposition from various military factions. This instability marked the beginning of a turbulent period for China. Early struggles of the Republic. The first years of the Republic were characterized by political instability as regional warlords retained significant power in their local territories, and so generally left politics to this fragmentation made it difficult for the central government to assert control over the entire country. Sun Yat-sen's government struggled to unite the nation and faced significant opposition from both military leaders, and conservatives who favored a return to a more centralized monarchy. Um, the warlord era 1916 1928 Thu uh, uh, fragmentation of China. Years after the death of the first president of the Republic, Yuan Shikai, in 1916, China descended into the warlord era, where various military leaders controlled different regions of the country. These warlords were often in conflict with each other, and the central government lacked the authority or military strength to unify the nation. Um, During this period, China was divided into competing factions, with warlords often focusing on regional control rather than national unity. Um, this era of fragmentation resulted in widespread corruption, economic instability, and an inability to implement effective governance. Rise of the Nationalist Party, um, Kuomintang, the Kuomintang or KMT or Nationalist Party, led by Sun Yat-sen, sought to end the fragmentation caused by the warlords and to unify China under a republican government. In 1926, under the leadership of Chiang Kai-shek, who succeeded Sun Yat-sen as the leader of the KMT, the Northern Expedition was launched. This military campaign aimed to defeat the warlords and reunify China. By 1928, the KMT successfully gained control of most of China and established the nationalist blah government in Nanjing. Rise of the Communist Party, formation of the Communist Party, the Chinese Communist Party, CCP, was founded in 1921, inspired by the Russian Revolution of 1917. Initially, the CCP was small and lacked significant influence in China. However, it began to gain support among the working class peasants and intellectuals, especially as the KMT's rule became increasingly authoritarian and ineffective. The CCP's ideology, rooted in Marxism-Leninism, emphasized the empowerment of the peasantry, which constituted the majority of China's population, and the establishment of a socialist state. Alliance and conflict with the KMT. In the late 1920s, the CCP and KMT formed a united front to combat warlords and promote national unity. However, tensions soon emerged as Chiang Kai-shek, the leader of the KMT, became increasingly hostile to the communists. In 1927, Chiang initiated a purge of communists in what is known as the Shanghai Massacre, leading to a violent split between the KMT and CCP. This marked the beginning of the Chinese Civil War, a conflict that would continue with interruptions for several decades. Japanese invasion and occupation, Second Sino-Japanese War, 1937-1945. The Japanese invasion, the Second Sino-Japanese War, 1937-1945, began with the Japanese invasion of China, marking a major turning point in Chinese history. Japan seeking to expand its empire launched a full-scale invasion of northern China, culminating in the infamous Nanjing Massacre, 1937, in which hundreds of thousands of Chinese civilians were killed. The invasion forced the nationalist government of Chiang Kai-shek to relocate to Chongqing in the interior, where it continued to resist Japanese forces. Meanwhile, the communists under Mao Zedong also fought the Japanese, particularly in the rural areas, gaining popular support due to their anti-Japanese stance and their ability to mobilize the peasantry, the role of the CCP. During the war, the CCP strengthened its influence as it was seen as more dedicated to resisting Japanese imperialism compared to the nationalist government, which was often criticized for corruption and failure to protect China effectively. The communists also gained significant support from the population by promoting land reform and social justice, whereas the KMT struggled with internal divisions and external pressure from the Japanese. Chinese Civil War 1945-1949. Post-war reunification efforts. After Japan's defeat in 1945, China was left to deal with the issue of national reunification. The nationalist government, supported by the United States, and the Communist Party, supported by the Soviet Union, resumed fighting for control of China. The Civil War, which had been interrupted by the Japanese invasion, flared up again with fierce battles between the KMT and CCP. CCP victory and the establishment of the People's Republic of China. The Communist Party, led by Mao Zedong, gradually gained the upper hand, largely due to their success in gaining the support of the peasantry and the weakened position of the nationalists, who were plagued by corruption, poor leadership, and the residual effects of the war with Japan. By 1949, after years of fighting and with the PMT government in retreat to the island of Taiwan, the CCP declared the founding of the People's Republic of China under Mao Zedong, the Republic of China, which had been based on the mainland, relocated to Taiwan, where it continued to exist as a separate government. Historical significance of the Republic of China, end of the imperial era. The establishment of the Republic of China marked the end of imperial rule in China and the beginning of the modern Chinese nation state. However, the Republic's early years were marked by intense political fragmentation and conflict as it struggled to establish a stable government and unify the country. Civil War and the rise of communism. Rise of the Communist Party in the Republic's later years and its eventual victory in the Chinese Civil War fundamentally changed the course of Chinese history. The CCP's victory led to the establishment of the People's Republic of China in 1949, marking the beginning of a new socialist era under communist rule. Impact of external pressures. The Japanese invasion and occupation had a profound effect on Chinese society and politics. The war with Japan left lasting scars on China's infrastructure, economy, and population. And additionally, the war and the Chinese Civil War profoundly affected China's international relationships, particularly with the United States and the Soviet Union, both of which played pivotal roles during the conflict. In conclusion, the Republic of China era was a period of significant political turbulence, foreign invasions, and ideological battles that ultimately culminated in the rise of communist rule on the mainland. This period set the stage for the modern political landscape of China and the world. The People's Republic of China, 1949 present, the People's Republic of China, marking a new era for China under the leadership of the Chinese Communist Party, CCP. Mao Zedong, the founding father of the PRC, led the nation through dramatic social, political, and economic changes. The subsequent decades saw China undergo transformative events, including the Great Leap Forward Cultural Revolution and the shift towards a market-oriented economy. Under Deng Xiaoping, in the 21st century, China emerged as a global economic superpower, though it faced challenges related to political control, environmental issues, and geopolitical tensions. Establishment of communist rule, 1949, Mao Zedong's leadership after the Chinese Civil War, 1945-1949, in which the Communist Party defeated the nationalists. Mao Zedong proclaimed the establishment of the People's Republic of China on October 1949. The Nationalist Party retreated to Taiwan, leaving Mao and the CCP in control of the mainland. The newly formed PRC was based on Marxist-Leninist principles and aimed to build a socialist society, eventually reaching the goal of communism. Major events during Mao's rule, land reforms, and collectivization. Yes. Land reforms were implemented soon after the establishment of the PRC. The communist government redistributed land from wealthy landowners to poor peasants, promoting equality and attempting to eliminate feudal systems. Collectivization followed, aiming to increase agricultural output by organizing peasants into large collective farms. However, this move led to inefficiencies and resentment among farmers, especially as local governments exerted heavy control over agricultural production. Great Leap Forward, 1958, 1962. In 1958, Mao launched the Great Leap Forward, an ambitious campaign to rapidly industrialize China and improve agricultural production. The plan included the creation of communes where farmers would work together in large collective farms. The initiative was a disaster. Agricultural output dropped significantly due to poor planning and harsh weather conditions, leading to a massive famine. Estimates of the death toll range from 15 to 45 million people. The Great Leap Forward is regarded as one of the greatest economic failures in Chinese history, leading to Mao's temporary loss of influence in the government. Cultural Revolution 1966-1976. The Cultural Revolution, launched by Mao in 1966, aimed to purge Chinese society of capitalist and traditional elements that Mao believed could undermine communist ideology. He sought to reassert his authority within the party and eliminate political rivals. During the revolution, millions of people, particularly intellectuals, were persecuted. Red Guards, mostly students, attacked perceived enemies of the revolution, leading to widespread violence, purges, and social upheaval. The educational system and cultural institutions were disrupted, and China faced a period of extreme political instability. The Cultural Revolution ended in 1976 with Mao's death, but its effects on Chinese society and politics were profound. Economic reforms under Deng Xiaoping. I am currently thinking of possibly going for mentoring program with Joseph Morgenstern. Thank you for watching this video.